I'm Travis Bader, and this is the Silvercore Podcast. Join me as I discuss matters related to hunting, fishing, and outdoor pursuits with the people and businesses that comprise the community. If you're new to Silvercore, be sure to check out our website, www.silvercore.ca, where you can learn more about courses, services, and products that we offer, as well as how you can join the Silvercore Club, which includes $10 million in North America-wide liability insurance to ensure you are properly covered during your outdoor adventures. Before I get rolling, I want to let everyone in on an exciting new website that Silvercore is involved with called anchoredoutdoors.com. If you like hunting, fishing, foraging, cooking, homesteading, etc., you will love anchoredoutdoors.com. I highly encourage you to check it out. You won't regret it. This is a special episode where I sit down with Jens Cuthbert and Dennis Zentner, two extremely passionate ambassadors for hunting and fishing, and we discuss tips and tricks, ethics and local knowledge, and in particular, how to be successful when waterfowl hunting. These two are pros at what they do, and you'll have the opportunity to literally experience what it's like to be a local sitting at the counter of Stillwater Sports, a small-town sporting goods store situated in Ladner, BC. Sitting down with Dennis Zentner and Jens Cuthbert. Dennis is a former commercial fisherman. He's a current president of the Vancouver Gun Club. He's a past president of Region 2 BCWF. He's an avid hunter and angler who I met as we both sit on the hunting advisory committee for the city. And having shot beside him in Fort St. John, I can attest he's a heck of a good shot in his own right. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dennis.
I've also got Jens Cuthbert. Now, Jens has worked as a hunting guide in the States in the past. I know Jens as a person who lives to hunt. If you haven't seen his Instagram feed, make sure to check that out. It's 604 Backwoods. It's got over 17,000 followers on there. He's got some great content. He's sponsored and endorsed by Drake Waterfowl and Dive Bomb Industries, and currently works a couple doors down for the Silvercore head office, working at the local gun store in Ladner, Stillwater Sports. Welcome, Jens.
Thanks, Trav. Thanks for having me here, bud.
So I figured we'll kind of get things rolling here and get a little bit of background on you two. Why don't we start with you, Dennis?
Sure.
Commercial fishing. You did that for a while.
Yeah, I started when I was in high school, and I got the opportunity to work on a seine boat for one of the local families. Worked with that for a few years, and then got into the gill netting side of it, and I got to do some gill netting. So I got to work up and down the coast, and I thought it was a really good opportunity to see what the coast of British Columbia had. We went all the way from, say, Bella Bella, down all the way back down to the border here. And so I got to see some pretty neat spots of British Columbia.
Very cool. How long did you do that for?
About 6 years total.
So you've got some chops.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
How good were you on the boat when the seas were rough?
You know, in all those years, I only ever got a little bit green in the gills at the Sandheads.
Really?
Yeah, out of all the places to be on the coast, I think it was probably the roughest spot I was. It's the only spot I ever felt a little bit green in the gills.
You can get pretty gnarly there.
Yeah.
The Sandheads was the reason I had to get a larger motor on my boat.
Yeah,
For sure, yeah.
We've been out there in tin boats before.
Yeah.
9 9s and 12 footers.
I did it this year alone.
Uncle
I had my little 15-footer and my 40 horse out there just because my big boat was in use at the time. So
Yeah, Uncle Jack's got you beat. He's always out there around the green can there in his 9 9 and 12 footer.
Yeah.
Don't know how he does it.
diehards.
Yeah.
Hardcore. And Jen's commercial guiding. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Well, just like everything else, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I had a couple buddies that had a guide service there when I was down in the States for college baseball. And in the summer months or the spring months, I used to go and help him out in his guide service. And that's what kind of really put me on to chasing birds. I mean, I always did it since I was a kid, but really seeing how much the sport demands of how much time, how much effort it takes to get up every day and you know, you're getting paid to do that instead of just going out there leisurely. You got a little bit more extra to put on to it. So
You say that's something you've done all your life, just being out there chasing birds?
You know what? People think I'm crazy, but, you know, I'll be sitting on the beach in Hawaii and they'll be like, what are you thinking about? And that's all I'm really thinking about is the birds and what they're doing and how they're doing it and where they are and how everybody else is doing too. So
I don't think that's that crazy.
yeah, exactly. one fowler to the next, right?
Yeah.
That's how you learn. That's how you learn what they do. And
Yeah. It's
pay attention.
lots of people got addictions. Mine's hunting, or mine's just being out there.
Yeah.
Especially with good company, or my dog, or anything like that. With you, Trav, anybody, right? So,
So Cuthbert.
Yeah.
There's a BBC article, and they're talking about this Cuthbert, and he instituted the first local laws for bird protection.
I didn't know that.
So the eider duck, I guess there is an area off the UK, and this guy by the name of St. Cuthbert goes over there, and he sees people are eating the eider ducks and eating their eggs, and so he implemented the first bird laws in the world, and that was about 875 AD, and they've gone and named the duck after him. They call it the Cuddy duck or the St. Cuthbert duck.
Cool.
So anyways, I thought it was interesting that birding is so in your blood, and
Must be related.
it's got to be.
Neat little side note. I mean, that's good that he's protecting the birds. We like to harvest the birds, but at the same time, we like to do our part in conservation. Whether it's donating to the local clubs or helping the farmers or down at the DU sanctuary, anything, right? Or the rifle sanctuary. Do your best and volunteer. And it's more about than just killing the bird and eating it and stuff like that. It's about having a secure future for the up-and-comer guys that are going to get into the sport too.
Well, let's talk about the up-and-comers, because I look at you guys as sort of the old boys, the old school club, the old guard in Ladner. Now, Ladner has a very prolific hunting and fishing community, and a lot of people grew up around hunting and fishing. They grew up on the ranges. They know the rules. They know the etiquette. They know how to get into it. But there's a lot of people who are looking to get into the sport that don't know this etiquette. They don't know what they're doing out there. And I have to imagine, working in a gun store, there's going to be some sort of a weird dichotomy between you want to see more hunters out there, you want to see people getting into the sport, just not in your hunting spot. I don't want to see people coming into my hunting spot, perhaps, if they're not doing things properly, if they're not showing proper etiquette, if they're obviously being unsafe. But a lot of new guys out there, they just don't know it.
That's right. Yeah.
I think we've all seen it.
I think that goes to say for a lot of things in life. I mean, you come to the ice rink and you never played hockey before, and you don't know that you got to shower with the boys after or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's something to do with getting to know, stepping in the ring, getting to know the ropes and stuff like that. And it can be intimidating, but I mean, if you got a decent friend group and guys around you and stuff like that, and good general public awareness and stuff, then you start to pick it up better.
So I see people who have decent friend groups, but none of their friends are into hunting or into fishing. I remember when I moved to Ladner, of course, every odd year we've got the pinks that'll run up the Fraser, and I was super excited to go out and just be able to fish off the shore here real close. This is before I had a boat. And I watched a fellow, and he's casting out, and then you see him reel, yank, reel, yank. And I look over at him. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, this is how you're supposed to fish for him. Somebody else showed me how to do this when I came here, and he was being pretty successful." I said, "Well, you know you're not supposed to foul hook them. Like, that's against the law."
Yeah.
He's like, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, what you're doing, they call that snagging." He had no idea.
That's the Fraser River twitch.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what they call the Fraser River twitch, or everyone calls it that, I guess. Yeah.
Well, and I think what that boils down to is they maybe didn't have a mentor or an uncle or a granddad or a father that took them out and showed them the proper way.
Right.
They just went down to the riverbank like you did, Trav, and then just kind of just watched what some of the other fellows were doing, and well, that doesn't look that hard. And kind of followed suit, unbeknownst to him that he's not doing it legal.
Right.
You know, he's trying to foul hook with that style of fishing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, some people get caught and fined because they're doing it wrong, and they're just like, well, I just learned from the guy down on the beach there. So luckily for myself and Jens, we grew up with mentors that taught us the right way. So And I think it's part of our job as hunters and fishers to see if you see something wrong, go, hey man, like I think you're doing it a little bit backwards. Let me help you out. Some guys will take you up on the offer and some will tell you to beat it, right?
Right.
So hopefully, some of the people I've come across over the years doing things backwards took it to heart what we had to say and started to do it the correct way, the more legal way.
I think times have kind of generally changed over the last couple of years. Evidently, like this world is going so fast that back in maybe the 80s and early 90s and stuff like that, you're calling us the cavaliers of this time of hunting and stuff like that. Dennis was there way before me. He was there when dinosaurs roamed the earth and stuff like that.
Man, how old do you think I am?
I got a little bit of everybody by growing up, but I think people's time is so important to them that a lot of the time that they don't take the time to show other people how to do it, or they don't have the time to do it, whether it's someone's dad or grandpa or a big brother or something like that. It's just these days and age, the world's moving so fast that you got to try and keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, let's face it, hunting and fishing is not looked at the same these days and age as it was back in the 80s or the 90s, how important it was to the lifestyle of the people now.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, you didn't have social media. You didn't even have cell phones back then. You had to go and run down 3 blocks to knock on your neighbor's door to say, hey, Tommy, you want to go down there and fish down at the river or something like that. Right. So I think anyone who wants to join anything like fishing, hiking, outdoor, anything like that too, you obviously get into it by having someone there with you, and hopefully they guide you down the right way. It's whether or not they've been taught the right way. So like Dennis says, we're just lucky that we grew up with different family friends and dads and brothers that all kind of grew up in the same era as us too, right? So,
well, with the social media, I see people even just locally here posting up on Facebook saying, hey, I want to get into hunting. Does somebody want to take me out and show me some spots? And would you guys say that's a good way to approach it, or?
I think it's putting your neck out there, but I mean, these days and age, you kind of got to do that, but you got to think logically behind it. No guy's going to really give up his honey hole, or
right.
No guy's really going to show you the proper way. A lot of the things you can't be spoon-fed. You got to go out in there and grind it yourself and kind of figure out a way, and then surround yourself with good people too.
So where would you say a good first step for somebody? And let's just look in the Lower Mainland and talking about bird hunting. What would be a good first step if somebody really wanted to? They've gone through their training, they've done their hunter education, they've got themselves licensed, they got their FWID. Should they join
I would say talk to one of the local gun clubs, whether it's Pitt Meadows or Delta Ladner or even Vancouver Club. I mean, we're more of a trap club, but there's lots of hunters there. Ridgedale, Abbotsford, all the clubs all through the valley, or even in the north. There's waterfowlers all through the province. But a good first step would be to go to the club, join, ask some questions. Maybe one of those guys will mentor you. I don't have a problem taking a guy under my wing and showing them the ropes on how to fish and hunt and whatnot. But like Jen says, you're not really going to take them to your top secret spot, because we've been stung before. You take a guy there and then, hey, this is kind of my spot. Keep it under your hat, keep it under wraps, and you go back, a month later or even the next season, and here's this fella. Here's this fella in the exact same spot you took him with his buddy or two buddies, and all of a sudden, well, that spot's ruined. And unfortunately, with the way times are now with social media, it's ruined a lot of good spots.
Yeah.
Guy takes a photo and they recognize the background. Oh, I know where that is. Or they're on there and like, hey, I caught this big fish at, such and such a lake. And all of a sudden you go back there and it used to be you and maybe 2 or 3 other fishermen there. And all of a sudden you go there and there's 15 there now, right?
And the guys don't even go out and look for the birds. They just look for the background and the social posts. That's all it is. It's called internet scouting now, Dennis.
That's for sure.
They don't go in their boat and go out and look for birds, or they don't go out on the road and put 200 clicks on there to the valley and back and figure it out. Now guys just look for backgrounds and screenshots and stuff like that.
Oh, and so you look at some of Jens's photos of his birds, and he's a successful hunter. Yeah. And most of that is scouting. So step number 1 would be to join a club. Step number 2 is, once you think, okay, I'm going to be a waterfowler, one of the best things you can do is put miles in the truck, go scouting, find the birds, then start banging on doors. The worst the farmer can say is, no, I'm sorry, I've already given permission, or there's no hunting on my property.
Yeah.
Right.
If there's a spot where, he's got a big chunk of property and he might have already given permission to maybe 2 or 3 other fellas. Well, there's a couple guys that hunt here, so as long as you can all get along, it won't be a problem. So, I mean, that's the thing. People, for some reason nowadays, are scared to go and bang on a farmer's door and ask for permission.
Well, yeah, no one likes rejections. I mean, going up to Cindy at the high school dance and asking her to dance, and she snubs you for no. I mean, that's a pretty tough one to get over. It's still in my grade 11 year, right? But I couldn't tell you. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I maybe go 1 for 10 on farmers' doors some years, and sometimes you go 10 for 10 on knocks. But I mean, hunting is either you're in or you're kind of in or you're not in. You know what I mean? So I mean, if you really want it that bad, you can make it happen that bad. I mean, you can go as far as following guys out of the boat launch from the morning. You can go as far as picking out the most ugly guy at the boat launch and asking him where the ducks are and stuff like that. But I mean, when I was young, we'd haul sacks of potatoes from the barn all the way out to the roadside just for the farmer, just for a chance at permission. And half the time he'd invite you in for a cup of tea and say no.
Right.
And then you just sit there and you
there.
go home and cry. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Been there.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do? I mean, the best advice that I could say is put boots to the ground, go out and scout, just in bird hunting in particular and stuff like that. But don't be afraid of rejection. Don't be too upfront, too upcoming. Be respectful. Don't be too pushy or anything like that. It'll come when it comes, and just know when the right timing is to do it. I mean, you're gonna go knock on a farmer's door at 6 o'clock at night, and he's having dinner with his wife. He ain't gonna give you permission, right?
Not gonna be happy,
right? Or you pull him off a tractor when he's seeding a field, he ain't gonna be too happy, right? So I mean, pick your spots. Show up with a bottle. I don't know. That usually helps.
I found that one works well.
That works well, and I mean, I've given away bottles even with no permission, and come back the next year and they give you permission because they remember who you are, right? Half the guys don't do that.
The other thing I find, if you get permission, or if you don't, it's good to go back and upkeep that relationship. But if you get permission, there's nothing stopping you from bringing another bottle again afterwards or at the end of the year and saying, hey, thanks very much for ensuring that you clean everything up that you bring onto that field, to reporting any anomalies that you might see out there to the landowner. I mean, there's a responsibility, I think, on the hunter that's going to be out there to, if they get that permission, to maintain that relationship.
Well, that's a bond that you start with the landowner when you get permission there. Like you say, Travis, if you find something on the property that's not right, there's a tree across a fence, or a fence is down, or a ditch is sloughed in, or beavers made a dam or whatever. If you go and mention that to the farmer, and then they'd be like, oh, okay, this guy kind of understands.
Right.
So you build a relationship with that farmer, and then over the years, it becomes more than that. Now all of a sudden there's friendships involved and all sorts of things. And we've done it in the past where you bring them a piece of smoked salmon in a bottle, like you were saying, or even offer them some of your harvest, right? Like, old Dunk Montgomery there, I mean, he always kind of enjoyed it if we're like, hey, would you like a snow goose or a brant or whatever?
Pheasant, whatever.
Yeah, so he always, and quite often he would take you up on that offer. And I go, how many do you want? Well, 2 would be fine. So, we'd either dress him up real quick for him, or he'd dress him himself. It's okay, just leave him in the feathers, I'll deal with it. But quite often we'd run back to the tailgate and dress the bird for him and hand him and his wife, 2 big fat mallards or a couple snow geese or something. And he was quite happy with that. And in that example, he's one of the harder farmers to get permission from.
Nobody. Yeah.
Yeah. Very few guys. I mean, and in my industry now, I'm in construction, and when Duncan Montgomery was alive, I ditched all his ditches.
Oh yeah.
For him, right? And even doing that, he was a tough guy to please. So that gained me some access by helping him out.
He was my potato story.
Yeah, I knew exactly where that story was.
And he says no.
Right? And even to this day, his son runs that same farm, and it's not easy to get permission there. There's a handful of guys. So you were saying, where does a guy go to kind of get started? Duncan's farm in past years has been part of what they call associated wildlife preserves.
Right.
And it's an organization or a gun club that goes and secures farmland. You pay a handsome amount to become a member of this organization, but there's private lands for you to hunt on.
That's a good way to get started, though. It costs a little bit of money, but you know what? If you start that, if you pay what I think it's $800 or whatever, $1,000. I'm not a part of the Associated. I don't do the wildlife. I'm part of Western Island, but Associated there's other different hunting clubs. You just gotta dig a little bit to find out. But $800. I mean, for waterfowling, yeah, it seems a lot to swallow at the start and stuff like that. But you can go shoot pheasants, snow geese, ducks, all with landowner permission and stuff like that, and you have endless amounts from Ladner all the way out to
Chilliwack.
out to the valley, right? So, and that's, I don't know how many acres they got, and they have their own club, and there's lots of other clubs that have all different acres that you can join too. That's one good way to get started.
It is.
And it's just like any other hobby. Waterfowling is a hobby, and everything costs money these days. I mean, costs money to put fuel in your truck, costs money to go buy a new pair of skates to ice hockey. Everything costs money these days. So, I mean, you're going to have to buck up to pay, right? To play.
Pay to play, yep.
That's right. But at the same time, too, there's nothing wrong with knocking on public land doors and I shouldn't say private doors and doing your due diligence and not being afraid of getting rejected. We've knocked doors in Saskatchewan and Alberta and stuff like that. If you show up with a piece of fish on any Saskatchewan or Alberta door, they'll give you permission. Mark my words. They're the friendliest people out that way in the prairies and stuff like that. Every door that we knocked on there, if it wasn't already planned to be hunted, they would let us in. But every time when we knock doors in Saskatchewan, they let us in. They gave us a place to stay. Some of the nicest people around. Here in BC, it's a little bit more tight-knit. There's not as many spots to waterfowl. There's not as much public ground. It's not vast and wide open. We're dealing with the city kind of encroaching on us, right? We're dealing with new structure and new types of people and people that aren't used to being engaged with hunters, I guess. Hunters or fishermen, right?
Right.
So,
I guess another tip would be just really knowing the synopsis. Another easy thing that you can do at home. I've seen people who get into it and they have no idea what areas are open, what aren't. With the Lower Mainland, of course, we've got the Fraser Valley
map. Yeah.
The map. That's a good resource.
Comment on the map.
Yeah.
Being that you sit on the same board as I do, or the committee as I do, the map is a guideline.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it's red does not mean it's closed.
Right.
Right? So take an example of Surrey and Langley as red. Red is not necessarily closed. As far as the Waterfowl Act goes and the Right to Farm Act is, you have the right to protect your crops.
Right.
So just because it's red doesn't mean it's closed. You can go there and you could obtain written permission from some of those farmers and have access to that land also. Talk to some of the conservation officers, they know.
Mm-hmm.
The map is it's a bylaw map. So the regional biologist goes to the city council and says, any changes this year, what's closed, what's open, what are the rules and regulations as far as the bylaw stance goes. And then they produce the map. You've been there when
mm-hmm.
Jack brings the prototype of the map or the draft, and we go over the changes. It's a good guideline for new hunters because they don't know where to go.
Well, it's their only guideline, basically.
Yeah.
Apart from asking somebody where's legal, what's not legal. I mean, it's
correct.
So
they open the map. They open the map and say, "Oh, look, I can hunt here in Boundary Bay, and I can do this, and okay, there's some open areas for me to go." People come on, they'll phone, or you'll get them on social media. Where can a guy go get started? If you don't feel comfortable knocking on doors, you're going to go to Western Island or Brunswick Point, or you're going to buy a boat and go into the marsh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough gig to go and learn on your own without some sort of a mentor.
Yeah, it really is.
Right? There's lots to learn on how to do it, but lots of fellas, they'll go out to Boundary Bay and they'll walk over the dike and go out in the foreshore and they give it their best.
Yeah, but they'll learn. They'll learn from that single experience right there too.
Yeah, and that's called the knocks of life. You know, hey, I went out there, I got a little bit wind burnt and rained on, and I only got one duck.
Yeah.
Had lots of fun doing it. Maybe next time it'll be better.
That's duck hunting.
That is duck hunting.
Yeah.
All right. And then, part of the problem is people don't understand the capabilities of their firearm.
Right? So here we go there.
They're shooting at things that are a little bit too high or a lot too high. They don't know the effective range of their shotgun. So, in some cases they need to go learn how to use their shotgun properly. So you go to an accredited range and learn. And then you go out in the field and say, okay, well, that bird's a little too far, or you need to know what the load you're shooting is capable of, what you're capable of, and what the firearm's capable of. So there's lots of folks out there shooting stuff 80, 90, 100 yards. And I mean, if they do hit them, the bird probably trickles off somewhere, lands, half a mile away, and it doesn't get retrieved.
Right.
No dog, nothing.
No dog. And it's hawk food or coyote food or gone to waste because you're not shooting ethically. It's no different than, shooting at a deer and making a poor shot on a deer. Basically, what it boils down is learning your firearm and being an ethical hunter. If you're shooting at stuff that's too far away, you're going to wound more and retrieve less. If you let those birds come in, say within 60 yards, 40 yards is kind of the optimum shot or closer. But, say your max range is 50, 60 yards. If you're shooting at anything inside that, your success rate's going to go up a lot higher. So you go out with a box of shells and, hopefully you're going to come home with your limited ducks. I hear some people come and they go with a flat of shells and they're happy to come in with 5 ducks. Good on them. They're out there enjoying the outdoors. But
Good for Stillwater. Yeah.
Good for
Stillwater. But let's face it, it's not an ethical thing.
The other thing it does is just, you're going to have people seeing you out there do that. Like you mentioned the Brunswick Point. People can walk all around the outside there. They see you shooting at birds that are too far away, getting wounded, and where's that end up? Next thing you know, you're going to be reading about it in the newspaper. These poor ethics are going to be reported upon, and that one poor hunter
and ruin it.
Who's demonstrating poor ethics, all hunters will be painted with the exact same brush.
Yeah. The other thing that those guys don't realize when they're shooting at birds in or out of range or anything like that is when you shoot at birds out of range, my out of range is 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 yards. You're only educating them. They're not going to come in the next day. You know what I mean? Most birds are on a flight path. They're going to do that similar flight path every day until they feel uncomfortable to not do that flight path. So if you get those, let's say snow geese coming over at 60 yards, there's a lot of snow geese coming over at 60 yards, and you figure that you can hit them, and you're not hitting them at 60 yards. You're only educating those things to fly back at the next day at 70 or 80 yards, right? Now you're just tickling them. You're just massaging the breast. You're not even penetrating anything, right? You're only helping your Stillwater's cause with wasting and burning your ammo and stuff like that. And to be honest, it's more of a sport when you can decoy them or when you can get them in close enough to where you can actually do full capability of harvesting the animal properly and with one shot and down it goes, and it's a quick.
That's my favorite way.
Yeah,
that's my favorite way when the bird's completely committed. It's my favorite way to hunt birds.
Oh, there ain't nothing better. That's right. When you can trick a bird into coming into plastic things that look like it, then there ain't nothing better than that.
There's one other resource that I figured I'd throw out there. We talked about the regulations, talked about the map. Have you guys ever used iHunter?
Mm-hmm.
I use iHunter and Hunt Buddy.
Hunt Buddy.
Yep.
I think Hunt Buddy was sort of the trailblazer on the
That's
phone.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a guy by the name of Mark Stenroos in Alberta who took the iHunter thing. And for people that are new to it, it's a pretty good resource. It makes things, now of course you have to check the synopsis, make sure that everything matches up, but they're pretty good at keeping on top of things and knowing what your limits are, what the season is, the length of it. But the maps are one of the tools that I found quite useful. I remember it was last year, actually. I was on an elk hunt, and we had taken the kids into town to get some hot cocoa and ice cream, and we're heading back, and we're going through some farmland, and we see some juvenile elk in a farmer's field. And we pull over, the kids are trying to identify it, and figured everything around here was going to be private property and non-huntable. And as the kids are looking out, I look over at my wife and I say, well, you know, Mama's not going to be too far away. And my wife had a cow elk tag. So too bad we're in an area where we can't harvest them. And she pulls up the iHunter and she looks, was actually right across the street over there. It's completely open.
Yeah.
And I look across the street and there's another cow elk right there. Having resources like that can also be a helpful thing.
I think a thing to touch on is, well, you mentioned regulations.
Right.
And as a core instructor, it's one of the things I stress a lot is regulations and how to read them properly, right? So learn how to read the regulations properly, because, and Jens will say the same. When you look at a lot of the hunt forums, guys are asking simple questions that are in the regulations, right? It's like, hey, it's on page 15, just look it up yourself, sort of thing, right?
Right.
They're relying so much on everybody to tell them what to do instead of actually doing the research. So in my core classes, I kind of spend a little extra time on the regulations part, because I want them to know how to use it. They can't come back to me and say, you didn't teach me about that. You didn't teach me about, the regulations well enough that I understand it. No, when my students leave, they know how to read that regulation properly. I find that happens a lot. And hunters on the hunt forums get not upset, but they get tired of those silly questions that are so easily you should be able to figure them out yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think yeah, when a question that's pretty simple gets posted onto let's say a forum or a page on social, and you've had guys that have been in the game for 50 years or whatever you want to say, I can see how they can get easily annoyed with simple questions like that or whatever. But at the same time, these days and age, I should say the kids or the people that are getting involved in this stuff almost want it spoon-fed to them, to the point where they don't even care about reading the regulations. We've got a new influx, a new coming of new hunters coming into the thing, where it's, I pay for my license, I pay for my tags, I pay for my stamp, I can go out there and shoot. I don't know how much I'm allowed to shoot, I don't know where I'm allowed to shoot, but I'm just going to go out and shoot because they've never had that privilege before.
Right.
It's a privilege to hunt. It is, but it's our right to hunt too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe it's our right to bear arms, and it's a firearm is just a tool to me. It sits right next to a shovel, on the front porch, and it doesn't do any more damage than a shovel would too, digging in the yard, right?
Preaching to the choir.
Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of negligence when people are so put out dumbfounded questions and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think they just need a little bit of more direction and a little bit more help sometimes too, because they're coming from an era where it's uncommon to have to work pretty hard to get to what you want in life, right? So,
well, working in the gun store, what are some of the common things that you see people come in that you just kind of have to shake your head at? I'm sure there's
millions, Trav. We come in with barrels put on backwards and
chokes put in the wrong end,
fully loaded guns, and I don't know. It happens, but I mean, there's people from all walks of life and stuff like that. And like I said, they just need a little help, a little guidance. Sometimes it's due to negligence or laziness and stuff like that. But I mean, we get public coming in for public complaints. We get hunters coming in about other hunter complaints sometimes.
Okay.
But I mean, that's all part of the game, when you're in that certain aspect of it, it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen as often as you think it does. It's going to happen in that time. We're trying to whittle it down to as minimal as possible, right?
Public complaints. Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
What can new hunters do to mitigate public complaints?
I think they should, one, know the rules,
right?
Just so that they're not out of place or out of bounds and stuff like that. And sometimes rules aren't there written; they're just the unwritten rules of the sport. You know what I mean? Not to set it just like you do in fishing. You're not going to go down there and go post below a guy in the run and start casting your thing in without going to maybe ask permission and say, hey, man, I know it's not your river, but out of etiquette, I'm going to ask you, hey, can I fish below you, or would you rather me fish above you?
See, a lot of people wouldn't know that.
No, they wouldn't, right? And same thing with duck hunting, right? You're not going to go post a guy. I mean, I had it this year in similar situations hunting snow geese where we had a guy post up 50 yards off our set.
Come on.
And, and what do? You can either join forces with the guy or educate the guy, or just, if he's a plain, I guess, dick, then he's going to have that name built out for him later on or whatever, right? But in most circumstances, it all figures out its own way and stuff like that, and people get along. And I mean, as hunters, we all have to unite somehow, because we all love the sport. We all love to hunt. But we don't want it to be thrashed by the few and far between the people that are going to try and ruin it for us with being ignorant or uneducated things. So with the public complaints and stuff like that, yeah, I think it has to do with some hunters and stuff like that are ruining it for others. But I also think it's a little bit ignorance on a part of the public that about most of the complaints that we get.
Oh, for sure it is.
I mean, it lands on both sides for sure. But here would be an example, and an ethical hunter or a hunter with a bit of smarts wouldn't pick a heavy southeast wind day to be shooting right behind a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's going to sound like you're right in the backyard. So there's days where I've gone to a field and went, this might not be the right place to be shooting here today, because it's going to, I mean, yes, you're more than legal. You're far enough out in the field that nobody's going to get rained on, but the noise is going to make the neighbors mad.
And that's the same thing with like casing your gun while you're walking the dike. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Jens and I had this discussion. Well, I was with a fellow today actually in the store, and I was in there visiting Jens, and this fellow came in, and the discussion came up about hunting Boundary Bay, and with the Metro Vancouver running the strip park at the dike.
Yeah,
that was owned by Delta. Metro Van came to Delta and asked if they could manage the dike as a strip park, as a continuation from the Centennial Beach Parkway, right? So Centennial Beach Park used to come around and come over to Boundary Bay, and it kind of ended there. They wanted to carry on the strip park so people could enjoy that whole use of the park. Problem being is, back when we were kids, that was pretty much strictly used by hunters.
Right.
The guys would go out there with their pickups on a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the dikes were never gated back then. You'd back up there on the thing. You'd have your trap throw out there. You'd be chucking pigeons out there, shooting clay birds and stuff like that. Well, that's come to an end after that happened. This fellow that we were talking to today, one of the comments was about walking over the dike or down the dike with an uncased gun and packing 3 ducks. The general public who's not hunter savvy, not going to want to see that.
No, not at all.
So you got to be a bit smart as a hunter. Like, let's not be flashing it. Case your gun, throw your ducks in your blind bag or whatever, and then mind your P's and Q's. The problem is people get a little bit confrontational. Like they'll come across a person, just general public, that's not educated about hunting, and you shouldn't be shooting birds out here. And well, that's not the case. Boundary Bay in that aspect with that park there, it's a multi-use area. It's no different than Brunswick's Point, where people walk their dogs and the kids go out on their bikes and they ride along the dike. It's a multi-use area. Both, like, hunters need to get along with the public needs to get along with the hunter. So if you have a hunter or a group of hunters that's a bit confrontational with, somebody from the public that's not educated about hunting or doesn't agree with hunting, that just makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's going to be all sorts of complaints, right?
I think we've all been there, where there's going to be confrontation. There's going to be people that don't share the same views that you have or anything like that. What you said, Dennis, I'm all for that. I'm not too scared about, I would case my gun on the dike, but I'm not scared about showing my harvest.
No.
Or my fowl or anything like that. I think most people that walk those dikes, let's say 64, 72nd, Brunswick Point, Pit Marsh, whatever you want to call it, any public ground, I think most people are accepted of it and they know what's going on. You got to remember that down Brunswick Point, that used to be all private dike. Public used to never be able to walk down there until they opened it up in I think it was the early 90s or something like that. But you have to remember that the hunters were there before there was dog walkers, before there was, morning walkers that had their cool crisp, that come down there with their Starbucks. And now here I am stereotyping them. We live in such an awesome place, especially Ladner. We don't want to put it too much on the map because then more people will come because it's already losing its small thing. We're getting encroached with that big, ugly piece of pavement out there in Tawasin. I shot thousands of ducks, or I shouldn't say thousands, but hundreds of ducks right where that big, ugly mall sits. And now it's not soil. It's concrete now, right? You can't get that back. You can't grow crop out of concrete. And here we are having some of the best soil in all of Canada, and we're paving it over like it's nobody's business. And
it brings up there's the interesting balance, because we talk about casing the gun because some people might be offended by seeing the firearm.
Mm-hmm.
By putting your kill and hiding it away. I know I was speaking with another fellow. He says, I'd love to drive down the road with my deer opened up on the top, letting the air cool it out, but I just can't do that because of how that'll look. And although it's perfectly legal for somebody to be walking out with their uncased firearm, and perfectly fine for them to be displaying or having their harvest out in the open, there are going to be those within the society that are offended by it. And the difficult fight comes in when, just like you were saying before, it's a tool. I was raised around firearms. I got my first firearm when I started shooting at 4. I got my first firearm at 5 years old. I still have it. A custom-made 22 Stevens, cut down to fit a 5-year-old frame, right? Took down into 2 pieces, could throw it in my backpack, was perfect. I'm used to that. And for a long time, I had this attitude of, it's legal, it's lawful, I can do it. Screw everyone else, right? I mean, I'm not doing anything wrong. But the reality of it is, we are the minority. Yeah. We really are.
And that's what's changed from like the 70s, the 80s, and the early 90s, and now, getting into, we're well into the 2000s now, and I mean, I hate to say it, but the snowflakes are winning. You know what I mean? Like I shouldn't say they're winning because it's not a fight for that, but I don't think anyone should be not proud to be a hunter or even a shooter or a fisherman or anything like that, because a certain group of people that are more minded like that disagree on that part, right? But it's a touchy subject, right? Because at any point in time, you could say the wrong thing and you're going to be the bad guy, right? You say one wrong thing and shame on you.
And when it comes down, do I case a gun? Do I not? Do I hide the harvest or I not? And then it becomes the argument of, well, if we keep casing it and hiding it and people don't see it, then how do you normalize it? Because not seeing the firearm becomes the norm, and you further hurt your cause.
Well, like just back in the day when guys would roll around in their Chevy or their Ford or whatever with 3 guns sitting in the back window, right? Yeah. You wouldn't think anything. When I went to high school, I used to drive a Cutlass Supreme with empty bullet shells all around the thing like dingle balls, but they were shotgun shells. Perfectly legal, but I got pulled over quite a bit. But at the same time, it was like, I was okay with displaying that. I was okay with, being okay with that. And at that time, it was right at that transitioning point where, guns are scary, guns are bad, guns are thing. I think a lot of it is just ignorance and uneducated people about certain things. It's a tool, and it's a way to harvest animals, right?
Well, speaking of the general public and people seeing hunters out there, Dennis, you had an experience where somebody got their phone out, filmed you. I think they put it on YouTube, didn't they?
Went to media, went up to the media,
yeah.
We had a opportunity, a very privileged opportunity to hunt a piece of property who not many people get to hunt, and it's back in when we were allowed to hunt the property. Now it's being developed, so it's kind of off the table. But back in that time, there was a handful of us that had permission to hunt there, and it came to the point where the public pressure from around that farm, they kept complaining to the landowner, and the landowner finally said, okay, there's no more hunting here. Got to the point where there was so many snow geese in this property that even the neighbors were like, man, we can't even sleep at night. They're there all the time. So the landowner finally said, okay, come on in and let's harvest some of these geese and make them move on. This a resident, everybody's got a phone now on their with a camera on their video. So came out and videoed us, called the local Delta police, and made a big scene of it. Ended up going to media. When it was in the papers, it was on the news. We weren't doing anything wrong. We followed all the rules. The guy basically tried to make a mockery of myself and my hunting partner at the time. We stayed professional, answered the questions. The media came to my hunting partner's residence. We did an interview. People just need to understand that we harvest our animals. We just don't go shoot them just because.
Mm-hmm.
We don't shoot over our limit. We're conservationists. Us as duck hunters, when the ducks are freezing, we get a big, long freeze up. Example would be way back when Boundary Bay was froze over.
Mm-hmm.
The ducks were freezing. They were thin. The Delta Gun Club went and purchased a whole bunch of grain and went and spread it out for the birds to eat. You wouldn't see Joe Public do that.
We get, I say as hunters, we give so much more back to the wildlife than any of the general public does.
Well, the old saying, gents, like the migratory bird stamp.
Oh, yeah.
Us as hunters buy that migratory bird stamp every year. The money goes back into the waterfowl.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that Joe Public can't buy that same stamp and contribute.
Well, that's what I mean. The guy I take photography of wild birds and love them just as much as when they're alive as when they're on my table.
Right.
But they don't see the hours put in at let's say the sanctuary or behind planting a cover crop for a farmer or anything like that too. Like I said to the dike walker that might complain that when you have harvested birds there, it's like, hey man, I pay $17.85 every year for my bird stamp, and that contributes to the wildlife habitat restoration, to all that stuff. What do? You can buy that too.
Right.
Why haven't you bought your bird stamp? Do you have your bird stamp? Anyone can buy it.
Not only that, it's a cool thing to collect.
Well, that's too, right?
I don't think a lot of the general public actually knows that.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if
That's a good tip.
If you're a birder and if you enjoy photography or going out there with your binoculars and looking at the chickadees, looking at the sparrows, looking at the starlings.
And the waterfowl.
Yeah, and the waterfowl, anything, that all helps that, right? But just on a case in point, touching, Dennis, is like the other thing that people don't realize is how much damage those birds do to farmers' crops.
Mm.
I've had a farmer come up to me that has significant amount of property on Westham Island, and he's come up to me and he goes, Jens, you know what? I didn't get a wink of sleep last night. And I said, why? And he said, do you know what it sounds like to have $10,000 get eaten out over 2 nights?
Yeah.
And it's like, you sit there and you're like, and he's like, can you come and pound them out for me? And it's like, yeah, I can only do my best. But at the same time, it's like, that guy's losing money, right? It's getting eaten out, house and home. Every single field,
Mm.
And
it doesn't take long for a big flock of snow geese to annihilate a whole field.
And then they stamp down the ground. The water will sit on the top.
That's right.
Yep.
And then you go as far as how much damage they do here, and then when they migrate back up north into the tundra, how much damage they do up there. They're almost eating themselves out of house and home. They're almost killing themselves off because there's so many of them on this certain flyaway and on the
Central Flyway,
Flyway and the Mississippi Flyway, all that stuff, that they're eating the tundra so fast that it can't even regrow back so that the birds can eat the next year after that. There's just so many of them that they're eating so much that the juveniles can't survive that.
Yeah. And right now, those numbers are just out of control.
They're out of control, yeah.
Eventually, it'll self-level, one would think. Food will run out.
I mean,
something is going to happen. But...
Yeah, Trav, they had that guys that used to say, they wouldn't see a snow goose in the 80s, and they might see they might have, 5,000 on the flyway in the 90s. Here, I'm talking Pacific Flyway here on our coast. And then you generally, and then you just saw the explosion happen where you had, where the normal was 50,000. Now it's at 60,000. Now it's at, 130,000 on good hatch years and stuff like
Well,
that.
I never
too.
used to hear or see snow geese in East Delta, Chilliwack. They're up the valley now,
Yeah.
where they never used to be. I mean, it used to be we hunted them on the foreshore, we hunted them on Westham Island, maybe at Brunswick. That was it. Now they've come inland. They're like right into Central Ladner, East Delta,
Wow,
and further out. And in years gone by, that wasn't common to see.
yeah. But it wasn't common to have a casino or a big mega mall or anything like that
true.
too, right?
So a lot of areas been
It turns those
decimated.
birds pretty nocturnal pretty quick. I mean, you don't get to pound them in the daylight hours, and they come in at night, and you can't do anything about that. They get so smart so fast, and you have so much light pollution around here that they can come in and they can feed at night, and then they'll leave at first light. You don't get a crack at them.
That's
in
a
the
good
farm.
example, Jens. I mean, right by my shop is right where Highway 99 and Highway 17 meet.
Yeah,
and they have those big light halos at the interchanges, and behind the shop at night, that field's lit, and the snow geese would come in there at night, every night, and it was just like it was daylight there for them.
Oh,
it
you
didn't
wait-
even phase them to
you
land
wait
in
till the
dark.
slot machines go up down
Yeah,
the road
it'll
from
be
you.
even
and
worse. It'll be even worse.
Thanks, Mr. Toygo.
Yeah.
Shout out, bud. Make your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, another thing that hunters can do to help themselves too is, we talked about it earlier, was to pick up after themselves, right? Like earlier we mentioned, like if you saw something wrong with the property, the tree down on a fence, or beaver dam in the ditch or whatever. But I mean, that's part of it. You go out there and you have the privilege to hunt on, whether it be public land or private land. Try not to leave the big mess. I mean, I get it. Some of the casings, they go off in the side and you don't find them in the long grass. But if you want to be welcome back there, or you want to keep hunting open in the area, you got to kind of pick up after yourself too. So,
Yes.
pick up your casings, pick up your lunch wrappers. It's, make it nice as it can be, or nicer than when you got there. And that's the problem. Like, I've gone to doors and banged on a door and asked for permission, and it's a farmer I don't know. It's in an area I don't know, and the answer is no, because the previous hunter there was a slob hunter, right? We'll just use that term. Didn't pick up after themselves, left their pizza box behind or whatever they had for lunch, and beer can laying in the blind or whatever. And so the farmer's like, nah, I'm not interested in going through that scenario again. So, the hunters need to help themselves by, looking after the piece of property they're hunting on. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be private land, even on the public lands.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of times they'll go to a spot, that's pretty commonly used by duck hunters, and you'll go there and there's casings from the previous guy there, and you're like, oh, come on, man. And you're going to fill a half of a 5-gallon pail in
I'd
5
pick 'em
minutes, pick them up.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to be the superhero and stuff like that. There's marsh cleanups and stuff, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be your mess to pick it up either, right? Because
It'll affect you.
it's all the duck juju too, right? Like if you pick up 12 casings, you're probably going to shoot your limited ducks. That's how I put it. If you pick up 3 Tim Hortons cups and a pizza box and stuff like that, you're probably going to get some good flocks coming your way, right?
Yeah,
so it's not going to happen all the time, but it's better to be on the good side than the bad side anyways.
And on the public side, I'd like to circle back to your story there, Dennis, with the person taking the video, because I remember seeing that video and there's a bit of an uproar, and I remember watching it's like, it was hard to see in the video, but I'm like, I think I know that guy. I'm looking at it.
I got a pretty distinct profile.
and I watch it, and although there was negativity surrounding it at first, I was really impressed with what you did afterwards. You did the interview with the media. You educated them as to what people are allowed to do, what you were doing out there. And I think whether you're the type of person to case your firearm or to tuck away your harvest or to have it out displayed, engaging the public when you're out there, educating them what you're doing and why you're doing that, just even if it's just a nod, hey, how you doing, the friendly.
Always try to be friendly.
And that's what most of it is on the dike there too, unless, the people that are going to give you a scalding look most of the time, even when you're walking on the streets without a gun or without stuff like that, someone's going to give you
wearing your camo.
Someone's going to give you, a bitch face. I'm not going to really give you the time of day either, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's important to, let the people know that you're there and you're doing everything legal and everything's cool, and You're not going there to hurt nobody. I mean,
Even that smile, a little bit of outreach,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden,
exactly.
maybe you're not just a scary guy with a gun.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
no, I can see where it comes from both sides, where, where you've got a guy walking with a gun and you might not be comfortable around guns, just like most of the general public's not, because they're unaware of what it can do. But yeah, just a simple smile or a good morning or have a good rest of the walk and be on your way. And that's kind of, I think the most of the general public along these dikes and stuff like that, they kind of know.
Yeah.
It's not their first rodeo, and most of the time, if it's a guy coming down from Vancouver with his Maserati and Starbucks and wants to walk his Chihuahua on the dike, and he might have a problem with it, but at the same time, it might just take 2 minutes of education, and he might be on your side. You never know, right? So
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about etiquette, some tips, some really good tips, actually. If people are really listening to this, there's some great takeaways. And educating the public. Before we wrap things up, is there anything that we should get out there? Anything that we haven't talked about that should probably be said?
I don't know. I think just based on, I mean, we've only kind of touched on the Delta Ladner area. I mean, there's lots of other places to hunt waterfowl and, Langley, White Rock, Surrey, Pitt Meadows, Cloverdale, Chilliwack, all those things, right? You can go anywhere. I would just encourage people, if they want to get into the sport, don't be afraid to jump in. It is an expensive hobby to do and stuff like that. It is an addiction. Once you get into it, it's an addiction. So if you have a significant other, just make sure that they're ready for that addiction to start and ready for
ready for that 3 a.m. jumping out of bed. Where are you going on this stormy front morning?
You're ready to squirrel away a little extra money for a gun or some extra ammo or something like that. But I would just say, just remember you're representing all of us when you're out there. It's not you're representing yourself, but you're also representing all of us out there. So if you treat wildlife and our resource and our environment with a good hand, then I think it'll all repay itself in the end. The other thing I'd touch on is if right now with the world that we're living in, everything is getting developed, everything is getting overexposed. We're dealing with tons of stuff against our own environment. Here in British Columbia, people move here to see what we have and what we have to offer. And right now we're moving in a certain direction to where we don't care about our wildlife, is what I'm seeing. I might be a little bit biased, but with our government and stuff like that, BC is one of the most renowned places to come to in the whole world. We live in the best place in the whole world.
Yeah, agreed.
And if we don't start caring about our wetlands, our oceans, and I'm not giving a Greenpeace speech or anything like that. All I'm asking is that you give maybe 20 minutes of your time on maybe sign a petition or maybe go to a meeting. But we're losing a lot of stuff each and every day, whether it's to do with coal pollution or loss of foreshore or loss of public ground to hunt on, even big game or waterfowl. I suggest that you get involved in that, and especially if you're a newcomer, because it's for the newer comers. It's for our kids and their kids that are happening. If we lose that, then we're not the same British Columbia. We're not the same Delta. We're not the same Langley. We're not the same area anymore, right?
One of the biggest things I think that hurts us as hunters is hunters bickering with hunters. Social media.
We're never going to cure that.
Social media is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because, the hunters are bickering back and forth between each other, and we're not sticking together. So, we're imploding ourselves. Whereas we'll call them the leaf lickers is what I usually refer to them
What
as.
was that? The leaf
lickers.
Oh, I like that
leaf
one.
lickers.
Haven't heard that one before.
They don't understand hunting. We try our best to educate them, some of us guys, but for the most part, it's it's our own bickering back and forth between hunter versus hunter and this group versus that group, whether it be BC Wildlife Federation and resident hunters of British Columbia, whatever, bickering back and forth. The end result is we're do what we do because we enjoy wildlife. We enjoy being out in the wilderness, whether it be fishing and hunting, hiking, trapping, whatever it is. But if we just learn to, stop, think, listen a little bit, and pitch in. And the big thing is, like, the worst thing that I come across is the keyboard warrior. And I put my time in. I go to meetings. I sat on the board of the federation. I was a director for BC Wildlife Federation for the longest time, even after I was the regional president. We put our time in, and you put all that work in, and then somebody squishes everything you did. And it's like, man, what did I do that for? Like, why did I work so hard so somebody could stomp me? What it boiled down to is the keyboard warrior. And I'll question him quite often. Like, hey, I see you're complaining. Well, I've never seen you at a meeting before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Never seen you put in your time.
Why don't you come out to a meeting and put your time in? Well, I don't do that. I'd rather just do it from here. Well, you don't have all the facts. So please get the facts before you start
the thing
typing on the
that
keyboard.
social does is it gives a perception. You put yourself out there when you make comments or when you post something or whatever. You're going to put yourself out there, but you better be educated when you put yourself out there. I have guys, I got guys direct messaging me all the time. Hey man, like, where'd you shoot your birds? How do you shoot that many birds? How are you so good? How are the blah, blah, blah? I said, you know what? The best duck hunters I know don't have social media. They don't do social media. They're an old guy that goes out in his boat every day and shoots his limit of ducks, or he shoots 4 ducks and he's content with that and he stops after 4 because that's all he can eat. Or that's all he wants, or whatever,
and
right?
he's learned, like, he's followed the pattern. He's done his homework. He's scouted. He's comfortable with how, his shooting capabilities. He lets the birds get him to 40 yards. He, knows how to set up decoys. He's a competent caller. You go out to the marsh some days and there's a guy with a duck call and you're like, you just want to get in your boat and drive him and cram it down his throat because it's just like, oh, fuck, you don't sound anything like a duck, right? But everybody's got to learn somewhere.
The social platform, I mean, it's like, here, I caught this fish, and then the next guy posts, hey, I caught a bigger fish. Hey, I caught a bigger fish. Hey, I caught a bigger fish. I caught a bigger fish. Well, man, good luck. Good job, man. Because the 70-year-old guy that did it in the 80s that caught twice as big as fish as you don't care. And neither do half of the other ones. But at the same time, you're only representing yourself in that type of way. So if you want to be that guy, you go ahead, be that guy. You're going to shoot yourself in your own foot, right? So, but at the same time, you can also move in a more positive direction and guiding people or helping people know the rules, or, maybe helping them out with a little extra info or something like that. But the real warriors are the guys that are going to bat every day for us. Whether it's contributing to BC Wildlife or going to, Region 2 meetings or Region 3 meetings or Region 5 meetings, it's all important here in BC. It's not just this local aspect to it. I mean, it goes as far as Cranbrook, Prince George, all the way up there, right? All the way through our natural resources. And right now, the way that I see it going and stuff like that, it's kind of getting put in the back pocket, and we really don't care about it. And all the leaf lickers, as Dennis would say, when the hunters and the fishermen battle against each other, they just sit there with a bowl of popcorn and love it, right? They just eat it all up, right? They want to see us turn against each other, and I get it. It's a sport and it's competitive. People want to be at the top of the chain. They want to go out there, and people want to be successful though too. And don't get me wrong, the only way that you're going to be successful is by going out there and repetition, doing it lots and lots of times.
But it's saying that, Jens, I mean, you go out there, and I know it's happened to me many times, and then same with you. You and I've hunted together before, and you go out there on a day and you don't get any.
Oh yeah,
but you still learn something.
Oh,
I think the definition of success has to be what you're talking about there. Social media sometimes skews success as, well, you have to have a pickup truck full of birds.
Yeah.
Or you got to have the biggest fish. But success is what? Did you go out there and have fun? Did you learn something?
Yeah.
Did you make some bonds?
Well, and then like Jen says, you had a pickup truck full of birds, or your sled's full of greenheads that you shot that day, sort of thing. We didn't come by that easily. We worked our way to that. Right. We learned. It's called the knocks of life, the knocks of hunting. You go out and you learn, I didn't do it right. Biggest thing guys can learn is go get permission, go hunt private land. Doesn't really matter. Biggest thing is scouting, concealment, and decoy placement. And then the fourth would be learn your firearm, right, gents?
Oh, and your calling and all that stuff too, right? And
Calling comes with time, but biggest thing is like, how did you do so well? And I've always said that I put my time in scouting, put my, fuel in the tank, miles on the truck. When you get there, make your hide as most natural as you can. So you use hide around you to build your blind. You laugh at some of these guys. You go by and you'll see a nice goose spread out in the field somewhere, and this blind sticks out like you took your hammer to your thumb and stuck it out in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
It's yellow in a green field sort of thing, right? So one of the biggest thing is concealment. If you stay hidden and match what the terrain around you is, your success rate most likely is going to go up.
Yeah, and you'll learn from that. That's another thing of successfulness is like when you go out there and you see birds flaring off you, or you're down or you're upwind of an elk and it smells you. You know what I mean? You're gonna learn from that experience. When you got a big 6-point bull walking in front of you and you're on the wrong side of the wind. Well, hey man, that thing takes off. Well, I bet you if you're into it, you're gonna learn from that experience, right? Same with whatever moose calling or when you show up in the rut. It's not just to do with that. It's getting to know what you really want to get into, right? So the more you know about it and the more you experience it, the better you're going to be. And it doesn't mean that you need to put 8 greenheads on the tailgate. It doesn't mean that you need to have a 6-point bull hanging in your man cave. It doesn't mean that you need to catch the biggest steelhead. But it does mean that you can go out there and you can have a good time doing it and enjoy
the outdoors.
What it has to offer. Yeah, you learn every time out there. Every time you can learn something new out there. I mean, and there ain't a time that I haven't went out, and I go out a lot, where you don't learn something. And now you get guys that at certain stages in their, I guess you could say, their hunting career or their fishing career, where they're successful, but they want to share their success and show other people. They get more gratitude with bringing other people out there and watching them light up on hooking a steelhead or shooting a couple widgeon or watching birds work or bugling in an elk. You know what I mean? Like that, all that stuff. Just talking about that stuff makes the hair on my back, on my neck stand up, right? So and then when you see a newcomer or even a guy that's just been in it for 5 to 6 years, and you've already seen the show, you've already seen that Cirque du Soleil parade plenty of times, but they haven't. Right. And then, they're hooting and hollering after it all is successful. I mean, that's when you know that you're doing something right in there.
Hell,
right?
I still hoot and holler when I get one down.
Oh, every time, buddy. Every time. I told you it's an addiction. You go out there all the time, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You got to have I think if you want to get into hunting, you got to have an understanding wife. Number 2, you got to have an understanding wife. Number 3, you got to have an understanding wife. Number 4, you got to be spending money on your wife. And number
Put a
5,
big fat ring on her finger.
Number 5, you just have to have an understanding of people around you that accept you for who you are, right? So it ain't easy, and no one ever says. And if you can find someone that'll share all that passion with you and stuff, kudos to that, because
what I have found made things a little bit easier was that 100-mile diet thing, eh?
Yeah.
Right?
That did.
People are a little more interested in trying organic meat.
Yeah.
So they'd be like, hey, Dennis, could I have a duck? Or could I have a snow goose or a pheasant? Or what? No problem. I'll give you one. Yeah. Or could I have even a package of elk hamburger or something?
It's the first thing that goes on an open table anytime anyways. Right?
I go to an event and it'd be just a social, like a gathering, whatever. Bring an appy. I'll always bring a selection of, say, some smoked fish, and a couple different, so some duck and goose sausage, maybe some elk sausage, whatever. And it's usually the first thing gone at these parties. And they're like, what's this? What's this? What's this? So I put these little flags in there, elk sausage, goose sausage, whatever. People try it and they're like, wow, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
One of the things we do is the Waterfowl Heritage Days, right? So the Waterfowl Heritage Days, quite often we see single moms now. They have a son or a daughter that's kind of interested in hunting, but mom doesn't know anything about hunting, so they find out about Waterfowl Heritage Days when we bring them out. I find it, pretty funny. We've had some kids that they barely set foot out of the house. They don't do sports. Their buddy said, hey, there's this Waterfowl Heritage Days thing. We get to go hunting and try to shoot ducks and geese. We always do a lunch with them. And in the past, we did like duck fajitas or a duck chili or goose chili, that sort of thing. And I I kind of snicker because you see these single moms come and they'd have like their skirt, business attire on, drop the kid off in the morning, come back later, and they're miffed that you've asked them to meet him at Wellington Park at 5 in the morning, and these poor single moms got to drag her butt out of bed and get the kid down there, right? Come back at lunchtime and we got a big lunch spread put out, and they kind of turn their nose up at it. And I've said to a few of them, look, just try it. Like, try a duck fajita or a goose fajita and whatever. And if you throw it in the garbage, you won't hurt my feelings, but at least you tried it.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10, they would try it, or maybe even 9.5 times out of 10, they would try it, and they're like, hey, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
So, and the goal then was to try to get all the kids to harvest a duck, and even the ones that didn't. Quite often there was some kids that harvested 2 or 3 ducks, and they'd all go home with a duck. We'd send them home with a recipe.
They go home with a lot more than that.
Try it.
Yeah.
They go home with a lot more than that, though. Hey, Dennis, that day changes a lot of those kids' lives, and you'd be surprised on that might change their path in life. With a single mom dealing with a teenage boy, I mean, that maybe without a male influence in their life, when they get to maybe that 1 or 2 days a year that they get to go out and they get to be with the boys or the girls too, because they can hunt too as well. Mm-hmm. But for that special time in that moment, that day, they tell all their friends at school, they tell their grandpa, they tell their ma, they tell everybody how great that was. I don't think we've ever had a sour experience on a Waterfowl Heritage Days. And some years we've been out there and we've only shot 3 ducks, but some days we're out there. I mean, some Waterfowl Heritage Days we're out there, we shoot 20, 30 snow geese, right?
Yeah, just the luck of the draw. It's hunting.
But
it's
those no matter if you shoot a bird or you don't shoot a bird, that day from right there, they will forever remember that. I promise you that, because they won't ever forget
I know
that.
it for a fact, gents.
I get guys coming into the store that you brought out that are my age, basically, or just a little younger than me, and they still talk about that day, right?
Yeah.
And that's the day that basically groomed them into, maybe starting waterfowl, or, So if you ever get that opportunity where you got a kid that's going to tap you on the shoulder, that, maybe you put aside a weekend day for him, or you take him out for a night flight, or take her out for a night flight, or whatever, right? We encourage anybody, and it's never too late to get into the sport. I mean, we had my oldest hunter in the shop this year was 104 years old. He shot his own deer and dragged it out, right? So
104.
104.
Wow.
That's what I filled out the license. I was like, "Oh man, you're old." He's like, "Oh."
Is it yep?
Yeah, he had his little
yes,
Filipino caretaker pay the license fee and stuff like that. But he said he was going hunting, right? But I mean, you deal with kids from 5 years old all the way up to 90 years old. You're never too late to start in the sport, whether you're male or female. It should be welcomed with open arms. And I mean, if you're gonna snub your nose at people that are eager to learn and want to get in your sport, then you might be in it for the wrong reason right now, right?
What I have noticed as a core instructor over the years is how many women and children I've taught.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it used to be pretty much predominantly a male sport.
Oh, the numbers are going
and
way up.
now that there's so many ladies and kids that I've taught, and probably more kids than pretty much almost all the kids that have shot here in Ladner. At one time, I'd probably crossed paths with them, whether it be as a core instructor or as when we ran the Delta Ladner Rod and Gun Club Junior program.
And what do you attribute that to?
My mentors.
Yeah.
My mentors taught me, and how it came about with me getting some of these kids involved. My mentors taught me well. There was nobody to take over the youth program at our gun club, so we took it over. As time went on, like, my sister got involved. She would tell her friends. So then now there's a few girls getting involved. That now, again, like we talked about the 100-mile diet. A lawyer friend of mine, she and her daughters were vegan. And they came to me one day and they said, "Dennis, we'd like to take the core." And I'm like, it kind of threw me off guard that they wanted to take the core because they're vegans.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, I'm dating a fella and he's a hunter, and we tried some deer and we thought it was good. And it's like organic, it's healthy, like there's no growth hormone in it. So we want to learn how to hunt." So I taught her and her 2 daughters and a girlfriend of hers the core. And these 4 girls, well, 3 of them for sure that I'm still in contact with, they love to duck hunt, they
Wow.
love to deer hunt, right?
And they love to eat it now too.
They love eating it.
You know,
right?
I attribute that to a few things. Like you're saying, the 100-mile diet. Yeah, I mean, it's popular. People want to be eating organic. They want to eat local. And we find a lot more people coming through, a lot of hipster types that are coming in that just want to be able to provide for themselves. There seems to be a desire for people to go out and be self-sufficient. I don't know what's driving that exactly, if there's a uncertainty in their own life or if they're watching the news too much and seeing all the negativity and thinking, well, I better be prepared. But we do see those types coming in. And as much as hunters, as we look at the doom and gloom of kind of where things are going with the encroachment and population growth and the limited access that's just as time ticks on, I also see the other side to that. The face of hunting itself seems to be changing.
Yeah.
The reasons that people are looking to get into it seem to be changing. And I think what you guys mentioned earlier, for these people who might be intimidated to go out and go to the gun club or to strike up a conversation with some of the old boys, joining a club, putting in that time to meet the old guard and learn from them is an integral part. It's a way that this sport's going to continue. And in the same respect, the old guard's going to have to take a look and realize that some of these hunters aren't really they're not dressing like how we would dress. They're not exactly the type of person that we are, but they are enjoying the same sport. They're doing it legally. They're doing it ethically.
That's right. I think that's a huge component to it. I think there's a little give and take on both sides of it and stuff, where, you know, the good old boys might have to give up a little bit of their knowledge to the new up and comers so that you can all join up and conquer the hunting and here in British Columbia. But I think just touching on the 100-mile stuff, I think people are starting to try to understand where their food comes from. And I think a lot of people, it's a scary world out there. It's moving a mile a minute. I mean, you can't even keep up. That's why I mean, we don't watch the news in our place or anything like that. It's just bad stuff to do because, I mean,
It's not worth it.
in the short time that you have here on this earth, you got to be focused on the people that you care about, the things that you want to do, and the surrounding, your area, your atmosphere and stuff like that. And if you're too caught up in other people's worlds and stuff like that,
You're not going to enjoy life.
no,
Yeah.
you're not going to get there, right? You're not going to get the most satisfaction. So touching back on where your food comes from, yeah, do I have to grab a duck sometimes and wring its neck and put it out of its misery? Yeah, you bet I've had to do that a couple thousand times. But at the same time, if I feel remorse for that animal, every big game animal I've taken, even every duck that I've taken, when you kill something, if you don't feel a bit of remorse, then you're in it for the wrong reason because it is taking another thing's life, but you're using it to sustain your life. You're using all parts of that.
I totally agree with you, Jens. I've shot lots of big game animals, lots of birds over the years, and people have asked me that lots of times, like, what's it like as a hunter, and what's it like when you harvest something, and I've said to them many times, it has every emotion goes through your body, right? You're excited because, hey, I have this opportunity to harvest this elk or this deer or this goose or whatever. And then, so you're happy to be out there with your buddies. You're excited. All that's going through your mind. Hey, we're having a good time. And, here's my opportunity. So you harvest that animal and you knock it down. And now you're like, oh, man, I just shot an animal. So now there's the sad feeling, right? Yeah, I just harvest this, but hey, it's for my family. We're going to eat it. It's,
You respect it though. You respect the thing, and you
Totally.
respect the game that you chase, and you respect the game that you're in. And it's not for the faint of heart, I should say. But at the same time, like, I know where my food comes from. I know that I worked hard for this, for whether it's meat or whether it's even vegetables out of the garden. Like, I mean, I don't fight vegans. I don't fight vegetarians. I respect them. They have their own way of
Their
living. That's
choice.
fine and stuff like that. But if a certain group's going to come at me because they don't like the way that I harvest animals or the way I kill animals or anything like that, I mean, my rebuttal to them is, quit eating all their food. They're eating vegetables.
Well,
I mean, we can go there, but at the same time, it's like, you don't want to.
I've had that
but
argument. I've had that argument with the lady once. She's like, I can't believe you would go out and kill animals. And I go, well, it's no different than you going to the store and purchasing yours. The
Right.
difference is I know where mine came from. Mine didn't go through the slaughter process. Well, I'm a vegan. I said, well, what's the difference? You're upset that we've harvested a living being.
Mm-hmm.
My example was like, you don't think that carrot was sitting there just living its life, just say, hey, this is a great life, and all of a sudden you grab it by its hair, yank it out of the ground, wash it off, and start eating it?
But the other thing
Well,
is,
if they
it's
could
like
scream, it'd be a
everything-
completely different
Everything's
story.
living.
the other thing is too. It's like you get. I just don't want to pick on that certain group, but like, I mean, you get a crop of vegetables. Well, the vegetables now, they all get sprayed, so bugs die from that. Just because you have to eat those vegetables, so they have to be contained, so they have to get sprayed. So mice, rats, bugs, all living creatures that you're having a problem with us harvesting are getting harvested off or killed off because you're wanting to eat this plant or something like that, right? So, it's
The big
touche
vicious
here,
circle.
touche there.
Vicious
It's like,
circle.
what
Yeah.
can you do, right? But at the same time, you don't want to argue with that point. You just want to say, hey,
That's a tough thing to argue.
yeah,
Right.
you live your style of life, and I'll keep in my lane and live my style, and I'll help people that are in the way of my life, and you help people the way that yours is. But I'm not going to go out and bash on the way that you live life because that's the way you live it. You go right ahead. You have your own choice, your own way of doing that. But this is how I want to live mine. This is the animal that I want to eat.
A lot of what I enjoy about being out there is, being out with my friends or my family, whatever. Enjoying nature, and harvesting and gathering a lot of our food. Like, so while we're out there, I've done the fiddlehead collecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We grab morel mushrooms when they're when they're around.
Yeah.
Shaggy manes, all that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's all part of being out there. All right. So
Yeah.
and people don't understand that. It's more than just out there harvesting animals or trying to hunt animals. It's just being in nature, enjoying it,
living,
Mm.
living,
away
right?
from the city.
Yeah,
Getting
Well,
away from the city.
yeah, it's living, right? It's a different way of living. You got to respect that. You got to respect other people's way of living. You got to respect. If you respect mine, I'll respect yours. So let's just put it that way. Too, right?
Correct, right? And it's unfortunate. I mean, everybody has an opinion. It's some people just don't understand how you live, how I live, how Travis lives, and then they got to put their 2 cents in.
And don't get me wrong, it's tough taking an animal's life. Like it's
Oh,
not
definitely.
it's not an easy thing. It's not just we go out there and we shoot an animal, put the blood on our face, and say, yeah, like beat our
Pound your
chest and
chest,
say,
yeah.
hey, this is what we're here to do and stuff like that. It's a thing of privilege. It's you come in there and you work hard for what you want to do, and it's not easy. So that's why I have a little bit more respect for those people that are capable of doing that, knowing where their food comes from, maybe getting their hands a little bit dirty, maybe working hard for what they're entitled to, right?
Get a more
So-
intimate relationship with
Yeah.
life and death,
yeah.
and it creates a greater value in most people understanding that.
hmm
Well, like you touched on something. You said it's not easy,
No.
and people who think out there being a hunter is easy, it's not.
There's easier ways to get
hunters-
your meat.
The hunters that are successful, they work hard to be successful. The weekend warrior who thinks it's just as easy just to jump in the boat, throw out a dozen decoys, and go out and harvest a bunch of ducks,
Go figure that out.
they're
quick.
not going to be
Yeah,
very
they'll learn.
successful.
They'll learn fast.
Right? You have to put the time in, work hard at it. It's far from easy. You gotta expect that you're going to go on that elk hunt and not harvest an animal. Go and learn a little bit. The next year you might be successful or have a great chance at an animal.
Good
Right?
encounter. Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, example, my dad, him and I have hunted lots over the years. My dad has never had the opportunity to hunt big bull elk during the rut. And this year I had to the pleasure to take him along with me. We harvested an elk a few days before, but I had my dad with an opportunity. I had a bull. I called the bull within 25 yards of him, and he never made the shot because he couldn't tell if it was a legal animal or not. But I remember the look on his face when that bull standing 25 yards ahead of him, bugling his face off in the trees. And Dad, I'm looking at Dad, and Dad just kind of looks back, and it was over like, in a blink of an eye. The wind had changed on us. The elk winded us, and he was gone like a ghost. And I looked at my dad and said, how close was he? He goes, like 75 feet. And he goes, I've never been that close. He says, I thought I was going to get run over. And I'm like, and I said to Dad, I said, you know how close you were to harvesting that elk? And he goes, no. I said, it's like you're at the World Series game. You're down by 2 runs. You got 2 runners on base and you crank one and it's going out of the park and that outfielder catches it as it's going over the wall and there's 2 out. Said you were that close to harvesting that elk. And my dad kind of looked at me and says, you're right. It was one hell of a cool experience. He says, we never got him. We were this close, but it was so fun.
That's what it's about.
It is. You know?
If you make the success of the hunt, the harvest of the animal, you're going to have a lot of disappointed outings. And a lot of people will end up giving up on that. But if you make the success, the preparation, the time in, I don't know, I'm a
the
gear
enjoyment
junkie.
of the experience.
I'm a gear junkie. I like collecting the kit. And then you go out and you're hunting. You're outdoors. You're observing what's around you. You're a part of the nature. You're part of the process. And then guess what? If you do happen to harvest something, that's the icing on the cake.
That's a bonus, yeah.
A total bonus. I mean, you don't go out there every time expecting to come home with a truckload of birds or deer or elk or whatever the story is, whatever you might be hunting. But just be out there enjoying the nature and the wildlife and the lake you're sitting beside. You know, it's just it's all part of it. And when you harvest something, it's a bonus to the trip.
Well, I think we've got a lot of material here. Any new hunter listening to this will have some great tips and tricks. And I think we've really hammered home some key points here.
Yeah, and I think like Jen's touched on, he says, don't be afraid to, be a hunter, become a hunter. If you think it's something you enjoy, come and try it.
Yeah.
You either love it or you hate it. Right, Jen?
Yeah. You're either all in or you're not all in, right? But at the same time, I'm proud to be a hunter. I know all you guys are proud to be hunters, and there's lots of hunters out there and huntresses, and everyone that's in the outdoor community, whether it's fishing, hunting, trapping, hiking, camping, outdoor stuff or whatever, we all share the same environment, and it's up to us to have it and keep it going and all that stuff too. So just don't be afraid to stick your neck out there a little bit, and then don't be afraid to jump in with feet first.
Don't be afraid to ask Cindy to dance.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
I never really liked her. I just really liked dancing like that. So
you liar.
Yeah.
Does Cindy know?
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, she might be listening. I don't know.
She will after she sees it on your Instagram feed.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Sounds good.